Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the second episode of Silence by the Sage. I am here with a very special person, my wonderful girlfriend, Kate. And- Hi, Kate.
Hello.
So today we're going to be enacting the sage Rumi. So just a quick introduction. This is your first time watching. The game is called Silence by the Sage, and it's a dialectical role play philosophical exploration. So what it'll look like is we'll take turns. One of us will be the sage, in this case, Rumi, and the other person will be a pupil. And one of us will read some quote of that sage, and the other person will ask, "Are you trying to get me to see?" and peer into what they think that sage is trying to show them with this quote. And that wording is important because as opposed to, "Is this what you mean?" that can get us caught up in definitions and semantics in trying to get the right answer, where actually what we're trying to do in this is see beyond what we initially saw. We're trying to see beyond what maybe our immediate common sense understanding would be, or what our intellectual understanding would be, or if we deconstructed what we think the symbolism is, or whatever, and see beyond each time. So I'll read a quote, and Kate would say, "Rumi, are you trying to get me to see?" And then she'll just say whatever she thinks, whatever it reveals to her, whatever is seen. And then I will reply as Rumi, doing my best to, I don't have the wisdom of Rumi, but I like to believe that in trying him on, I can maybe be slightly more wise than I am as just Jake. So then I'll reply, however I think he might reply. And that could be witty, it could be provocative, it could be asking a question, it could be repeating something of what she said. Really, no limit to how creative and inventive you can get by trying this. And there's a general structure that when it gets kind of confusing, we can stick to, which is one appreciation and one anticipation. So, one thing that I appreciated about what she said, what I heard that I really liked, that felt potent, that felt like she was onto something, and one anticipation, somewhere that maybe is undiscovered, where there's still mystery, where there's somewhere left to look and more can be disclosed. And I wanted to talk a little bit just about the name, because someone pointed out to me that a lot of times the idea of silenced, especially in our culture right now, can be a shutting down. You usually have this feeling of some authority figure telling us that they know best and we're wrong and we need to shut up and listen. Where this is a more ancient kind of silence inspired by the Socratic idea of aporia, the sense of getting to that place where I'm on the edge of my thinking, where I don't even know what to say anymore, where I'm silenced because I'm just bewildered by what has been revealed to me or my preconceptions that have been taken away, and I'm left wordless. And I will encourage you at the end and now to try out this game with your friends, or if you're a teacher, maybe with students. And my marker of how well you're playing is how often you get to that place of aporia, how often you get silenced, where what you thought you know is pulled from your mind, and what you're coming to know is just beyond your perception, just beyond the edge of what you can see. And you're left in something of a wordless, both wonder and vacancy that seems to be pregnant with some new knowledge that isn't quite there yet. Uh, Kate, anything you wanted to add to that?
Think that about sums it up. I think Aporia to me has the sense of like you described, being at the edge of something, and but it's not empty. It's like a very full silence that it's like feels like things are being revealed and coming towards you, and it's an interesting kind of a somatic sense, like I feel it in my body, which is and I've never experienced it before doing kind of like a Socratic, dialogue, something like that. like
Hmm.
brings you out there, brought me out there, which is cool.
Mhm. Thank you. So, encourage anyone to try this. You can do it with any kind of sage. You can do it with a fictional sage, a historic sage, a mythological sage. And if you want a more full explanation of the game, you can check out episode 1 where we did Socrates. But I'll just say for now that if you want to try it, I really encourage you to have fun with it. Yes, you're trying to inquire and get deep and philosophical and have insight and all these things, but you're also just trying on some perspective that's not normally what you inhabit. And you get something out of it on both sides. As the sage, you get to try on what it's like to take this wise role where you have wisdom and you have insight and you're trying to peer into the depths of things and impart some knowledge. And as a people, you get to be in the presence of some sage. And, I can imagine thinking, oh, well, they're going to get bullshitted if you're just listening to someone that's not actually that sage. And there's something right about that, but it's actually my experience as the sage, I tend to feel more like a pupil, and there's something of the pupil role that your inner wisdom seems to come out. So I think it's fun. I think it's cool. I encourage you to try it. And shall we begin? So I'll start, and I'll be Rumi, and you'll be my pupil. So we need to take a moment to get into character. I know Rumi has a big beard, and probably is very loose. Hmm. So, my young pupil, the wisdom I have for you today: sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. Cleverness is mere opinion. Bewilderment brings intuitive knowledge.
Mm, mm, mm. Rumi, what I think you're trying to get me to see is that cleverness and bewilderment are different things, and that bewilderment said brings intuitive knowledge, that it bewilderment opens things instead of grasps onto the cleverness. And with bewilderment, it brings you greater knowledge, whereas cleverness does not. Cleverness is specific. I think you're trying to get me to see. Yeah. Mm. That bewilderment opens up the world. Is that what you're trying to get me to see?
Yes, yes, you're definitely onto something with this opening of bewilderment, this way that it doesn't grasp what it thinks it knows. It actually doesn't think it knows anything. Bewilderment is almost like a forgetting, but not forgetting your knowledge, but forgetting that you think you can have it. Really listen. Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. Cleverness is mere opinion. Bewilderment brings intuitive knowledge.
Mm. Rumi, I think what you're trying to get me to see, well, now I'm a little confused because said for you're selling the cleverness, but buying bewilderment. But forget that it's a bewilderment is a forgetting, and yet you're buying it. And I'm just noticing that I feel puzzled by what you're trying to get me to see. But what I do think you're trying to get me to see is that, I mean, I'm getting the image of cleverness is like being able to look at some object and have it, and yet the object contains many different sides to it, and cleverness really only maybe sees one side or a couple, whereas bewilderment, you can see more sides to it. Or there's something like bewilderment and cleverness. There's a difference in sight of the two. So what I think you're trying to get me to see is that bewilderment, it brings to mind like wonder, but almost like there's a different quality of wonder. Bewilderment is like even more like greatly awe-inspiring to me. And there's something about that awe and like being struck. Yeah, bewilderment is like being struck again for the first time when seeing something. And that cleverness is just, you see the same thing again and again, and you think you really have it, and you think you like fully understand it. But when really like bewilderment shows you, you don't have it. You are failing to see it anew time and time again. Is that what you're trying to get me to see?
Yes, I do believe you're starting to hear. I hear you noticing, understanding that, as you said, forgetting the three sides that you know, to remember the wholeness of it and how it too much, and anything you come to know is too much, and to be in anything other than a state of bewilderment, bewilderment in apprehending anything. To be anything other than a state of bewilderment is to not fully know it, because to truly apprehend something can only leave you struck, can only leave you bewildered. And inasmuch as your cleverness is effective at all, you have not seen. Anytime that your cleverness has an ability to be useful, it indicates that there is a bewilderment behind it that you are not remembering. Really listen. Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. Cleverness is mere opinion. Bewilderment brings intuitive knowledge.
Mm. Mm. For me, what I think you're trying to get me to see is that the inner frames of our mind that are cleverness separate, like they like a frame holds something in, and that the cleverness is the mere opinion is the holding in, and that bewilderment breaks that apart and reunites with the only way to know the one. It's the only way to really see more deeply, is the only way to intuitively know. As there's an inherent limitation in that built around frame that isn't there, that actually like has one's sensory, making machinery aware and picking up of more, with that intuitive knowing. And there's a but I think you're really trying to like get me to grok this second half of the sentence, but I'm just really, or the second half of the quote, but I'm still like feel limited by, or I feel like I don't know what you're trying to get me to see with the first part about selling their cleverness and buying bewilderment.
Mm,
What are you trying to get me to see?
yes. Very astute people. Yes. What do I mean by sell your cleverness? And as a forever student myself, I find myself maybe falling prey to my own use of cleverness in not fully appreciating what it means to sell it. There's a degree of it's not that cleverness isn't valuable. It's valuable in that you can sell it for bewilderment. So it's not never be clever.
Mm.
It's don't hold on to your cleverness for itself. It is merely it's fungible. Cleverness is very valuable, but to not trade it in for the bewilderment that it can bring is to confuse your dollar for food. Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. Cleverness is mere opinion. Bewilderment brings intuitive knowledge.
Mm. I heard so much in what you just said. I think what you're trying to get me to see, which I'm seeing now for the first time, is that it's not like sell all of your belongings and live, like just like a nomad with bewilderment, but that like, and it's not that the cleverness is bad, but do not forget, do not misidentify, do not right, like bind the two. Cleverness can be sold to be traded in to remember. And I'm remembering that you said to remember about the value of bewilderment, and that bewilderment brings intuitive knowing and brings you closer to knowing beyond opinion, to knowing beyond our own self-deception, to knowing beyond, and that includes, self-deception of just getting trapped within only bewilderment, and that there's like, I'm just hearing now, there's more of like a holding of both, but a remembering that one is informing of that the cleverness is like in service to the bewilderment. Yeah. I think that's what you're trying to get me to see.
You are very wise, young people. And as any good master wishes, you have transcended the master. And with that, we'll end our first half. Shake off your peopleness, shake off my roominess. And I just want to say a quick thing before we switch roles is that the perfect example of the pupil teaching the master. I wasn't even paying attention, really. what was getting meant by sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. I was trapped in a kind of clever understanding of, yeah, you should have more bewilderment and not get caught up in cleverness. But I didn't see until you had me reflect on it that it actually has value, and that's why you can sell it and buy bewilderment with it. That there's a sense that, in as much as this is what we were talking about, intellectual understanding is wonderful, but in as much as you don't let it lead you to wonder and mystery, it's only limiting. And yeah, so that was just a great moment of that.
Yeah. That was really cool. That was a really cool moment.
And I actually kind of had the sense of doing it in that, like, I had some clever understanding of this quote that I was like, I need her to see. But then I had to sell it when you asked me. I had to sell it and get bewildered so I could see more. And then, yeah. So,
Wow, you got in the quote to be able to see it and be taught by it. I love that. I love when that happens.
me too. Okay. Now we'll switch roles. Take a second. Assume. Hmm.
Hmm. Hello, pupil. So we're gonna look at a quote and I'm gonna want to see what you get out of it. When someone beats a rug, the blows are not against the rug, but against the dust in it.
Mm. Mhm. Rumi, are you trying to get me to see, like, if I can think of a million examples. If I'm trying to convince a friend of some way that they're wrong, or stop them from doing something that will hurt them, or something like that, I can think of other examples. But it's out of it's not against them. It's against the ways that there's dust in them, that they are sullied, and it's not out of, yeah, there's a way of confronting someone that's not out of maliciousness, but it's out of wanting to clean them. And and but but it's still, you're still hitting the rug. It still hurts them some amount, but it is for cleaning. Is that what you're trying to get me to see, Rumi?
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think you're on to something there. There's in wanting the best for someone or the for the rug to shine be the brightest it can be. There's like a desire to remove some of the stains, um, and the beating of that is not always pleasant for the rug, maybe for the one doing the cleaning either, or wanting the greater cleanliness from them. I think you're onto something there. But I want you to look for or listen more closely and see beyond what you're seeing. When someone beats a rug, the blows are not against the rug, but against the dust in it.
Mm. The first thing that I saw that you might be trying to get me to see is at least turning away from what to others, but in myself as well. But I I'm getting a sense that you're trying to get me to see beyond just what this looks like with people, with cleaning people, it that I'm on the edges of seeing there's something beyond just what this looks like, kind of immediately apprehensible in that arena. But there's hmm, someone beats the rug, blows or not. Huh. Well, the first thing that came to my mind as I'm seeing that is I hope I can articulate this. Like, can you imagine holding a rug, and if we took them as two separate entities, there's like the rug, like in its pristine form, and there's all the dust that if we called the set of dust, it's all right there. And when I beat the rug moves, and the dust kind of stays where it is, but it's separated.
Mm.
And there's something about that I don't know what to do with that, but I wasn't seeing that aspect of it before. And the sense that I'm moving the rug, I'm moving and to remove it from the dust, where the dust kind of stays in place, but it's it's for the removal of the dust. So I see that I and there's something about that that feels important. Is that what you're trying to get me to see?
Hmm. Interesting image, people. There's more than one way to beat a rug. One is holding it and moving the rug so the dust and the rug separate. And then there's also like hanging it over something so the rug doesn't move, but the dust gets beaten out of it. So there's more than one way to beat a rug. And but I am appreciating you noticing the separation, and yet there needs to be some amount of force to separate it. And that force sometimes is forceful. And I am appreciating your looking beyond the immediate interpersonal realm and into beyond that, towards its nature and towards perhaps how in some way we are like that somehow things are conspiring towards us being, the separation of the dust and the rug is happening with each of us. So listen again and see what you see this time. When someone beats a rug, the blows are not against the rug, but against the dust in it.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Starting to see something new. Are you trying to get me to see when we suffer, when I suffer, when life is hard, you know, when when God is beating the rug of my soul, right? There's a way that I wouldn't be holding on to my dust. That wouldn't be happening to me. If I wasn't, it would there would be no need for that beating. And so something I'm seeing that feels like a stretch, but it still feels like something I can see in this is that whenever I am hurt, whenever it's feelings that are hard, whenever there's discomfort, whenever there's confusion, whenever there's, absurdity, when I don't get enough. Yeah, when there's lack, I'm slipping away from me. But it's something like whenever that is the case, I was about to say it's not me that hurts, but the dust in my soul, right? But actually, no. As the rug, I am still getting beaten, but it's only that way so that there will be less dust.
Mm,
I only have to endure that for the the cleaning of me. Is that what you're trying to get me to see?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, my pupil, you have great wisdom, starting to see what I'm trying to get you to see. Yeah, that, and I love the use of this idea of like God beating our rug to in the intention to clean it, and to separate us from the dust, and for us to be able to separate it from it. And there's yeah, there's a lot of confusion around why me and this, like I'm being, yeah, like victimized by the beating, when not always, but in some ways, in some cases, it can be, mm, for us to transcend, right, transcend our ego and the the beating of our rug, and to see it as in service to the cleaning of it, so that it may be a pure reflection. So listen one last time and see what you see. When someone beats a rug, the blows are not against the rug, but against the dust in it.
Hmm. Yeah. So I saw it kind of in the interpersonal. I saw it in the kind of intrapersonal. Then I saw it in like the world to me relationship. But I'm starting to get a sense that you're trying to get me to see kind of a more deep and generalizable, encompassing principle that something like whenever we cleanse something, whenever, I could think of a million examples all of a sudden. If they're the basketball team, we need to cut the bad player, and maybe and it feels like a blow to the team, but it's for it to be more purely what it is, which is a good basketball team. Or like another, like I could think of other instances of if dust is like a if the dust in the rug is like some remainder that is in it, but is not of it. It's not even necessarily that it's bad. It just doesn't belong to the unity of the rug. It is not the rug. And in removing the remainder, the excess from any oneness, anything, it initially will always appear as an affront to the thing, but it is actually for the thing to be more purely itself. Is that what you're trying to get me to see?
You are much wiser than you were a few minutes ago, people. Mm. Mm.
Thank you, Master.
Thank you, people. Mm.
Take them off.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, yeah. I think one thing I want to say about the last quote is that it's not that, you know, anytime anyone beats a rug, it's a good thing.
Mm.
And it can actually be like sometimes, people beating a rug can be, getting their own violence out and trying to hurt the rug. um,
Mm.
so it's not always that that's the case. But
Mm-hmm.
also that there's something like I love that you brought up the principle and and like the trusting of a higher, I guess the higher order of cleanliness.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not necessarily that it's always good to clean something. Maybe there's like, I don't know, this is stupid. This is the only thing that comes to mind, like glitter on a plate that makes it decorative. And it's like, yeah, in cleaning it off, you're making it more purely a plate. But it's like, maybe, and if you want to eat it, that's a good thing to do. But if it's to be pretty, then it's not serving it. So it's not
Yeah.
necessarily that it's good or bad to separate the dust from the rug.
Mhm.
But whenever you do, it will appear first as an affront to the rug, even though it is making it more of itself. And
Mhm.
like, yeah, whether or not that's like always a good thing or not is
It's
is
really.
actually not the point as much of just naming that principle of like that is how it goes.
And I really love your analogy of glitter on the plate. Because some people hate glitter. They just hate it so much. And other people think it's the most like wonderful decorative thing. So it's like, and that's about the personal own perspective of what they're seeing on the plate. And so that's sometimes, the desire to separate it is more about the person than it is about the thing. But, like you were just saying, it's like there is something about, like some more pure essence of something. It does kind of feel like an affront, and just or it can feel like it sometimes. So I wanted to just kind of throw that in at the end about that quote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that was good. Well, thank you so much. And that was one more episode of Silence by the Sage. I hope for anyone watching that was you got something out of that as well. And it seemed like it might be a good time, might either be fun or intellectually stimulating or meditative or whatever you think you could get out of it. Please give it a try. And if you do, leave a comment and let me know how that goes. And also, if you ever want to try playing with me or someone else that you see on the channel, reach out. We could see if we make that happen.
Yeah.
Okay, any final words?
Yeah. What I would just say about this process is that it's kind of surprising. Like it was surprising to me what came out of like my mouth or what came out of this process. Like there wasn't a way that I planned for it and was kind of surprised both in what I learned from Jake and from myself in sort of like trying on both the pupil and the like master or, like sage Rumi role. And so it's just kind of like it through this practice, I'm seeing how we get to practice seeing beyond ourselves, like you mentioned, and actually it like we can maybe have like we can have more wisdom than we actually do in just these practices, which then which was teaching me like about that wisdom. So I don't know, it's just very fun and interesting. You never know what's going to happen in the best way. Thank you, Jake. This was fun.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for watching, for your time and attention. See you in the next one.